Hi tweens, I'm Miss Holly, and today we are doing a tribute to all the librarians at the Vestavia Hills Library that were born in the 80s, including me. So put on your favorite pair of Alf pajamas, pour yourself a bowl of Mr. T cereal, and grab yourself a box of Hi-C Ecto Cooler. Don't know what that is? No problem. We've got you covered as we go back to the 80s.
It is time for Back to the 80s, a game show all about the 80s. Let's meet our contestants. From teens, we have Derek. Also from teens, we have Daniel. From circulation, it's Gary. And our host, Holly. Here's Holly.
Hello and welcome to Back to the 80s, a game show with 3 different rounds to see how well contestants know their 80s. So let's introduce our players. Today we have Derek, Gary, and Daniel. So our first game is called Before, During, or After. Contestants must decide whether these events and inventions occurred before, during, or after the 1980s. So they have signs and they will hold them up with their answer and we will see who is the winner of this round. Let's get started. You ready, guys? All right, so number 1, the first Oscars, before, during, or after the 80s.
Are you for real?
That is correct, a clean sweep on the first one. Good job, guys. All right, number 2, invention of hula hoops, before, during, or after the 80s. What do you guys think? We have 2 befores and a during. Yes, Derek and Gary got that one right. It was before.
Y'all both before. What did you say? During. Hula hoops is like a quintessential 80s thing to do.
All right, number 3, Post-it notes sold to the public for the first time. What do we think? All right, we have 2 durings and 1 before. Looks like Daniel and Derek got that. The key word there was sold because they actually were developed in the 70s, so that was kind of a tricky one. All right, number 4, eBay. Was it before, during, or after the 80s? I see after. After is correct. 1995 is when eBay came along. Good job. Number 5, the death of Princess Diana. I remember this well. What do we think? Again, we have all the same answer. They're all saying after. That is again correct. It was 1997. Excellent. Number 6, Coke's first diet drink called Tab. I think it was before, during, or after. Gary and Daniel saying before and Derek saying during. The answer is before, 1963. Nice job. Number 7, the Challenger explosion. It was during 1986, yes.
That's right, it was the year I was born. Oh my gosh.
Number 8, the disposable camera. Before, during, or after? We've got Derek and Daniel thinking after and Gary thinking during. Gary is correct, it was during the 80s, 1987. Good job, Gary. Number 9, Google. When did Google come about? They're all once again correct. Google came about in 1998. Number 10, the first crossword puzzle. When do you think it came about? A before, and a before. That is correct. The first crossword puzzle actually was in 1913. That's way back there. Number 11, Walt Disney World opens in Florida. What do you think? We've got before and before from Derek and Gary and during from Daniel. I wonder who's right. It is Derek and Gary. It was before 1971. Number 12, we have push through pop tops on cans.
Push through pop tops.
So that's like the things that you open cans with these days.
That's definitely. I'll let the cards do the talking.
We've got 3 befores, and they are all 3 correct. And there's a little bit of a debate about this, 1960s to 1970s, but that's still before the 80s, so good job.
What did they do then? It was a pull tab before that?
Let's see what number 13 is. We have Nintendo Game Boy. We have during as the answer for Derek and Gary, and after as the answer for Daniel. It is during. It was 1989.
I was wondering whether it was going to be during or after.
Number 14, text messages. When was the first text message? Derek's going with after, Gary's going with after, Daniel's going with during. It was actually after. The first text message was December 3rd, 1992, and it said, Merry Christmas.
Daniel, what's Daniel's score right now?
My score is so bad right now.
Number 15, the Berlin Wall fell. Was it before, during, or after the 80s? We've got 3 durings, and once again, they are all 3 correct. That was a clean sweep. It was 1989. Number 16, I do know we have some Harry Potter fans playing today, so let's see if they can get this one. The very first Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We have after, after, and after. That is correct. 1997 was the first Harry Potter book. This is a fun one. Number 17, the first human heart transplant.
He cheated.
He totally cheated.
No, I was in the process of selecting my card, and I wanted to see what other people thought.
We have a before from Derek, a before from Gary, and a before from Daniel. And they are correct. 1967 was when the first one was. Number 18, DVDs. We have gone kind of past that now to Blu-rays, but when was the first DVD? We have an after, and an after. That is correct. 1996 was the DVDs. Number 19, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh my gosh.
Correct. That one came out in 1980. And finally, number 20, the U.S. voting age lowered from 21 to 18. Was that before, during, or after the 80s? Have a before.
I'm gonna say
And a before. They're all going with before. And once again, they are all correct. 1971. All right, let's get a tally. We've got Gary in first place with 19, only missing 1. Derek not far behind with 18. And Daniel closing in third place with 14. Good job, guys. Let's go to the next round.
But first, let's hear from the audience.
So we've pulled 2 audience members who are going to tell us all about their 80s memories. What year were you born?
1989.
I was born in 1988, Holly.
What's a TV show you watched as a kid that started in or was from the 80s?
Reading Rainbow.
I watched a show called Lady Lovely Locks where she had squirrels in her hair.
What is a favorite 80s song of yours?
Take on Me.
Take on Me by Aha.
What 80s term do you think we should still use today?
I'm a big fan of gnarly.
What you talking about, Willis?
Name a toy that came out in the 80s that you either had or wanted.
G.I. Joe.
Oh, I definitely had all the My Little Ponies.
All right, thanks. Let's get back to the games. Welcome back. It's time for round 2, which is called The Price. Is it right? So for this round, the contestants will keep the year 1985 in mind, and they must guess if the prices of these items are higher or lower than the price listed. Now, the people at the end of this round with the top scores will make it to the final round, so they are playing to try to make it to our final round, which is trivia. All right, let's get started and see what they know. You ready, guys? Okay, so our first item up today is gas. And I'm gonna say it was 92 cents per gallon. Do you think it was higher or lower in 1985? We have lower, lower, and lower. Unfortunately, they're all three incorrect this time. It was higher in 1985, roughly about $1.09 to $1.12. But as we know, gas fluctuates. Number 2, movie ticket. I'm gonna say that it's $4.15. Do you guys think it's higher or lower? Have lower, lower, and lower. This time they are correct with their lower answer. A movie ticket in 1985 cost between $2.75 and $3.55. Good job, guys. Number 3, the stamp, the postage stamp. I'm gonna say 15 cents. Do you think it was higher or lower? We've got Derek with lower, and we've got Gary and Daniel with higher. Higher is correct. A postage stamp was about 22 cents in 1985. Number 4, the Sony Walkman. I'm gonna say it was $132. Do you guys think it was higher or lower? We have lower from Derek and Gary, and a guess of higher from Daniel. The answer is lower. It was between $69 and $99. Number 5, a McDonald's Big Mac value meal.
Oh, here we go. Let me just check this piece of paper in my pocket.
I'm gonna say it cost $3.50. Do you guys think it was higher or lower? Derek and Gary are giving the same answer again, lower. Daniel's going with higher, and it was in fact lower. $2.59 for the meal, and a single cheeseburger cost about 77 cents.
The Big Mac is a prestige sandwich.
3 pieces of bread, $1,000 Island dressing.
It's classy. It's advanced.
Number 6, a concert ticket. I'm gonna say $11.13.
Is it more or less expensive than $11? Jeez, I'm gonna go with that.
We've got higher, higher, and higher. All right, they're all going the same answer, and yes, a clean sweep. It was roughly about $15.13. And finally, our last question of this round, a new Honda Accord. I'm gonna say it was $6,072. Do you guys think it was higher or lower? We have Derek going with higher and Gary and Daniel going with lower. Derek is correct. Higher. It was about $8,845. All right, let's see how they did this round. We've got Derek and Gary both with 5 that round, and Daniel with 3, which means Gary and Derek will be going to our final round. Daniel, thank you for playing. You did a great job.
I would just like to say that I was alive for less time in the 80s than they were, so.
Let's see how Gary and Derek can do in our trivia. We are in our final round, which is trivia all about the 80s. We have Derek and Gary who are going to go head to head and see who really is the 80s champion. All right, well, let's get started. You guys are going to write your answers on the board and hold them up, and I'll see who's correct. Question number 1. In which video game did Mario first appear? A. Mario Brothers, B. Super Mario Kart, C. Donkey Kong, or D. Pac-Man? I see a C from Derek, which is Donkey Kong, and also same answer from Gary. They are both correct. Donkey Kong was the answer. Number 2. Which 80s movie was the highest grossing film of the decade? Was it A. Ghostbusters, B. Back to the Future, C. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, or D. E.T. the Extraterrestrial? Gary's going with D, E.T. Derek is also going with E.T. And again, 2 for 2. They got it right. E.T. is the answer. Number 3. In what year did MTV air? A. 1981, B. 1983, C. 1984, D. 1986. Derek is going with 1983, Gary is going with 1981, and Gary is correct. 1981 was the year. Number 4. Which company caused the public to become very upset when changing the formula for their drink? As a bonus, what was the new drink called? A. Coca-Cola, B. Pepsi, C. Red Bull, or D. Sprite? All right, we've got Derek's answer. He is going with the company Coca-Cola, and he's saying it was called New Coke. And Gary also says, in parentheses, New Coke, and he is going with Coca-Cola. That is correct. Coke was the company that changed their formula. Nice job. Number 5. Who was the first American woman in space? A. Judith Resnick, B. Sally Ride, C. Ellen S. Baker, D. Krista McAuliffe. We have B. Sally Ride from both players, and that is correct. It was Sally Ride. Number 6. What 3 presidents served terms during the 1980s? A. George W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, B. George Washington, George H.W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, C. Jimmy Carter, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, D. Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, and Ronald Reagan. Both guys are going to say D, Carter, H.W. Bush, and Reagan, and that is correct. Those were the 3 presidents. Number 7. Which of these trends are trends of the 1980s? A. Mood rings, skate tees, chain wallets. B. iPods, MacBooks, PlayStation 2. C. Poodle skirts, diners, bowling. D. Leg warmers, scrunchies, big hair. Derek says D. Gary also says D, but that he believes C was making a comeback during that time. I guess both answers could go, but we were looking for D. Number 8. Which year was DNA used for the first time to convict a criminal? Was it A, 1986, B, 1985, C, 1989, or D, 1982? Derek is going with C, 1989, and Gary is going with D, 1982. They're both incorrect. The actual answer was A, 1986 was the first year. Number 9. Which movie was not released in the 1980s? Was it A, Rocky II, B, Footloose, C, Goonies, or D, The Karate Kid? Derek is going with A, Rocky II. Gary is also going with A, and they are both correct. Rocky II was not from the 80s. And number 10, which song was not released in the 1980s? A, Beat It, B, Hit me with your best shot. C, Eye of the Tiger, or D, YMCA. Derek is going with C, Eye of the Tiger, and Gary is going with D, YMCA. The correct answer is D, YMCA. And I believe that makes Gary our 80s champ. Woo! Great job, Gary. He really knows his stuff. Thanks for playing. Once again, I'm Holly. I'm glad you joined us today and hope you enjoyed our blast to the past. Also, be sure to stop by the Vestavia Hills Library in the Forest and check out some rad books from the 80s or your favorite decade. We'll see you next time.